Hi, folks. Larry Rolla here. Today, we're going to talk about a couple of things, answer a couple of questions, and but first, I want to give thanks to the guy that made this all possible, my good friend Tom Dukic. He showed up every time, 2 3 times a week with 3 cameras and lights and the whole bit. Put the whole thing together. The whole YouTube channel, everything, whatever had to be done, he did. Spent thousands of hours in the last 6 7 months putting all this together, editing all them films that came in from Australia, putting all the pictures up, and I can't thank him enough. And what can I say except that friends like him are few and far between. He's a great guy, does a great job, and he's a good friend. Another one I have to thank is Shaman, because without Shaman and her husband Alfred, none of me would be around. They helped me in my bad days. They helped me write the book. They helped me with this podcast. Just two good, solid friends. Another one that helped me with the live show that we started a couple of weeks ago is Tommy Stiggs. He has his own podcast. He starts like 7 o'clock in the morning, coffee with Tommy, and it's a great show. He has a bunch of 30, 40, 50 people every morning. They just talk about general stuff, worldwide stuff, neighborhood stuff. It's a great show. I want to thank you all for showing up on the live that I do on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock. We're going to do another one tonight at 8 o'clock, and it's going to get better. So I know the first one was bad. The second one was another abortion, but we're going to get better, and I'm going to get better at answering these questions that are coming in. I'm going to try to. Last week it was like rapid fire. It's I got to learn. I got to get better, and just all you guys out there, just put some good questions in. Try to get me to talk about the nitty gritty stuff, the stuff that I left out in the podcast and in my book. And the reason I didn't go into too much detail on the podcast was because we thought that any day that we were going to start shooting live for the TV series and the movie. And it was one thing after another since 2019. At first it was COVID. Then it was Frank Valalongo, who wrote Green Book, and won the Academy Award. He was going to do the movie, and he wound up dying 2 weeks after we started work. And then I hooked up with Barry O'Brien, who wrote 30 best TV series out there, and what held us up was first the writer's strike, 8 9 months. Then the actors went on strike another few months, and now it's the stagehand union that on strike for health benefits. So we've been trying to get this thing going for the last 5 years, and there's always these delays. So we keep going with the podcast, but it's starting to get, like a couple of people said, you're starting to repeat things. And the reason I don't want to go too deep into it was because we thought any time we were going to start this TV series, and didn't want to give out too much information. And I thought that maybe just by breezing through my life, everything would be over and we could go right into the movie or TV series, but that's not working out. So That's when I decided to start doing these live things so you people out there can ask me questions and try to get into the nitty gritty stuff. And I'll answer whatever questions come in. So that's it. One of the questions that came in last week, it was one that was asked of me a few times. And it's a good question. And they said that they wanted to know why my name was never really mentioned, why I didn't go to jail, and a lot of stuff pertaining to that. And I want to show you guys something. You all know my story, so I don't have to go through that. But you see this here? This here, it says 10 famous horse racing scandals, okay? And in here are the 10 biggest scandals of horse racing, race fixing, and since they've been keeping track. And you see which one is second? Here's the one that's second. It says the 1970s Big Tony fixes hundreds of races. Well, if you could see, Big Tony is Big Tony Schuler. That's the guy who I met in Lincoln Downs when I got there. He was fixing all the races for years in New England for Whitey Bulger and the Winter Hill Gang. He belonged to that whole crew. And when Lincoln Downs had their first harness meet in 1970, I think it was, or 71, he approached me. It was the first time we ever had harness racing at Lincoln Downs. And that's what started my race fixing. And I won't go into that. You all know the story. But the question was, how come I never got arrested? He got arrested. Conor Rico got arrested. Everybody involved went to court and everything else. My name was never mentioned. Well, I'm going to answer that question now. Tony Schuler fixed races in New England his whole life. He never left New England. When I was involved with him at New England, we fixed a lot of races there, and then from there I went to Monticello for the winter meet there, and he showed up there, and for that winter meet we made a lot of money. I didn't like the guy, but I got involved with him when I was at Lincoln Downs because I was penniless. It was 5 years of eating hay and oats with the horses. And so when the summer meet ended, when the winter meet ended, I because of my addiction, I owed out a lot of money, and I needed to make a lot of money. And I put together this whole deal. Because of Manny Ukaza, I was able to get a hold of Conor Rico, and the deal I made, you all know about the deal. And Conor Rico was able to get to all of the major jockeys at Aqueduct and Belmont, and that's what started that. Now, I put Tony Schuler with him. I was running my stable and doing what I was doing at Monticello, and they were fixing all the races with all the top jockeys at Aqueduct, Belmont, and Saratoga, and maybe one or two other tracks. And we would split the money, whatever it was, we would split. I had 4 runners that dealt with him, and that's how that deal happened. Now, when they got pinched in 1975, we had a good 3-4 year run. And Tony Schuler, he just became a government informant and just spilt his guts out just so he wouldn't have to go to jail. And they were more interested, I believe, in trying to find Whitey Bulger at the time and convict him for all the race fixing that he was accused of and got a couple of pinches early on in the 60s, late 60s, for all the New England tracks. And so he became a government witness and gave up Conor Rico. Now, the reason he didn't give me up was there was a couple of reasons. One was I only had direct contact with him during the Lincoln Downs meet and during the 3-week meet, winter meet at Monticello. I didn't like him. I couldn't wait to get rid of him. He was a big, fat, phony fuck who thought he was a gangster. But I made a lot of money with him at the time when I needed a lot of money. I was dealing with the devil, and I knew it. Now, he gave up Conor Rico. Conor Rico took the stand, and he could have gave everybody up, including me. But Con didn't say a word. He wouldn't give up the jockeys. He wouldn't give up me. He wouldn't give up anybody, and he wound up going to jail. Now, the reason I never told this story before was because Conor Rico had 2 sons. One son was a bad kid. I think he's serving life in prison right now. He's just a bad kid. The other kid was very, very successful, owns a bunch of car dealerships and very successful. And I was asked by his cousin, and by the way, his cousin, Dominic and Anthony, Anthony worked for me up in Monticello. And I was good friends with the family. And because when Conor Rico was released from jail, he made a video. He made an audio. He was interviewed by his cousin, and he told the whole story. The reason he told the whole story was because his son wanted to write a screenplay and make a movie of this whole incident. And this was 40 years ago, 50 years ago. And up to today, he still hasn't done it. So his cousin, who's my good friend, Dominic DeCero, he told me that I could give this information out. I was asked not to do it early on because the son wanted to write a screenplay, so I never said it. But I do have an interview of Conor Rico telling the whole story, what he did, how he did it, who he did it with, the jockeys that were involved, and everything else. I have that. I never said anything about this, but last week I got a phone call, and I got a phone call from Dominic DeCero, and I told him, I says, I'm going to start doing these live question and answer things. If somebody asks me these questions, which they did, and he just says, go ahead and do whatever you want to do. Don't worry about it, because it don't look like his son is ever going to make the movie. It's been 40 years or whatever. Just go ahead and do it. So that's why I'm saying this for the first time. Had Conor Rico become a witness, I definitely would have been in jail. And but he took the rap for everybody. He was well taken care of during that time. And so that should answer that question. I don't know how anybody could believe that for years, since he was a kid, Tony Schuler was fixing all the races at all the New England tracks. How do you think he got up to New York? How do you think he got information pertaining all the best jockeys in the country at the time? How do you think he met Conor Rico? How do you think that when he never left New England in his life, how do you think that he got to New York? It was me. Now, I'm not bragging. I did what I had to do at the time. I'm just answering a question because people say, how come everybody got arrested but you? and now you know. Okay. So that hopefully that will take care of that question. It's the first time I ever said what I said, and hopefully that'll stop people, because every once in a while they ask me about that. Another story, another question that came in was about a guy called Marty Pearl, a Jewish bookmaker and associated with. Anyway, he used to come up to Monticello, and he used to lend money, take action. He was everything, and he had a guy up there collecting for him. This guy he had up there was about 6'4", maybe 280 pounds, big bad guy. He was a fighter, he was a boxer, and he worked for the Concord Hotel. And he was the sparring partner for every heavyweight fighter that went and trained up at the Concord. And one day he came to me and he said to me, he says, "Look, I know you're betting with you're not betting with my guy, you're betting with Bonnie Cutler. I'm starting a little business on the side. Give me some action. I never bothered you before, but now I'm asking you to give me some action." Well, I didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. He had never had a reason to bother me, but I said, "Okay, George, I'll help you." His name is George Matisco. He's still alive and he's up there. He's probably going to have something to say once he hears this. He's still up there. So I took out the sheet that I had, and I think I bet, I don't remember, but it had to be like, I bet maybe 4 or 5 games with Bonnie Cutler, and 4 or 5 games with Cabert. And my limit, there was no limit. I bet 20,000 a game, so I bet maybe 80 or 100,000 worth of games with Bonnie, and same thing with Cabert. So what I did was I bet the same games, only opposite. I bet the opposite way with George. Well, the windup was I lost all 4 games, all 4 or 5 games with Cabert and Bonnie. But because I bet opposite, I won all the 4 or 5 games with George. So he sees me in the steak pub, right at the table. He comes, he grabs me, he puts me up against the wall, and he says, "You must have fixed these games. You robbed me." And I said, "George, I lose a couple of $100,000 this weekend." I says, "I bet opposite what I bet with them with you. Keep the money. I don't want the money. Just calm down and don't ask me to bet with you anymore." And that was the end of that. So them are 2 questions that came in that were that I didn't get a chance. I didn't get a chance to answer. Tonight at 8:00, I'm going to do another live, and I hope you guys. I hope you guys tune in at 8:00, and I hope you ask me some questions. Now, the guys that are listening, you all read the book, you all heard the podcast, and try to ask some questions. So some of the inside stuff that I never explained, the guts of the stories, because the book and the podcast, I skim right through everything. It's what you heard is probably 5 or 10% of what really happened. So I'll answer any questions pertaining the mob, the people I was associated with in the mob. I'll answer any questions about Cabert. I'll answer any questions about Bonnie Cutler, about training, racing, lameness, anything you want. So please tune in tonight at 8:00 and give me a shot at this, because I'm going to be better at answering questions than I am about trying to remember what story I told the week before and saying the same thing over and over again. And that's it. So thanks for watching, and please tune in at 8 o'clock and send in your questions. Till then, Tom, I thank you very much. Tommy Stiggs, I thank you very much. Alfred and Sharman, I thank you very much. And I'll see you all tonight, 8 o'clock.